Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Behind the Numbers. My name is Dave Bookbinder, and this is the program where we dig deeper to understand what really matters most in business. One of the things that certainly matters most in business is the power to differentiate yourself from your peers and your competitors. And today we're going to have a really interesting conversation on that topic with Barry Labov, who's the president of Labov and Beyond Marketing Communications. He's also the author of a book called The Power of Differentiation: Win Hearts, Minds, and Market Share. Barry, welcome to Behind the Numbers.
David, it's an honor. I'm ready to go.
Let's do this, man. Normally, I just tell my guests to introduce themselves briefly to the audience, but with you, I'm going to pick a little deeper here and ask you to share your story as you introduce yourself from your days as a rock musician all the way up through becoming Entrepreneur of the Year. Share that journey so the audience gets a flavor for who we're talking to today.
Dave, like you, I'm a Philadelphia guy originally, so I grew up in Philadelphia. My loves of life when I started out as a young kid was the Phillies, which, that means I'm a very loyal person. And
oh, yeah, I remember
music.
the days when they were eliminated before Mother's Day.
Yeah, I fell in love with them in 1964 when they lost, I think, 10 games in a row and missed out by one game to go to the World Series. So that was a heartbreak. So the other thing for me was music. And I very soon around my 12th birthday started to write songs, play drums, and I coerced my younger brother into being in a band. And it really affected the rest of my life because he and I were a two-man band. I played drums, sang, wrote the songs, and played keyboard with my left hand. So you can imagine it did not sound good. My brother sang and played guitar. I wrote songs, produced songs, and as time went on, getting into my late teens, I started to join and or run bands, rock bands, to the point where we had a song on MTV's videos. We had a song on the Billboard charts. I've had 3 songs published by some pretty famous people, Barry Manilow and Natalie Cole. And what it did was it gave me a chance to understand how to really run a small creative business. And that's what it was. And then the turning point for me was when I was in my late 20s, my father passed away, and I had been running a jingle company, the irritating little ditties that you hear on the TV and radio. I was running my own company doing that as well as my rock band. And I decided that, I'm not going to live forever. I got to decide what I'm going to commit to. And I committed to running the company. And from that point on, it took off. That's how it all started.
And Entrepreneur of the Year?
Right. What happened it's kind of shocking, within 1 year, I think it was because I focused. And it's differentiation. I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to try to be everything to everybody. I'm going to do this one thing. I won the Entrepreneur of the Year award, and it's because a very large company had chosen me to take on all of their marketing, which I did not want to do. I kept saying no, and they finally came to me after a year and said, look, we want you to take on all of our marketing. Why won't you do it? And I said, I've given you all these names. Why are you coming back? And they said, because we trust you. And I went, okay. And that was the beginning of me doing full service marketing and training.
Nice. It's a great story. And for anybody who's curious, the band is Mark Urgent, right? MARK,
yes.
Urgent?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did take a look at some of those videos. Classic 80s look and feel. Good stuff. Don't sell yourself short when you tell that story to people. So let's jump into the topic that I mentioned at the top of the program here, brand differentiation. Let's set the stage for why is it more important than ever to be able to differentiate your brand?
Today, we are pressured to become commodities. And that's whether you're a one-person company or whether you're running a 70,000 person company. The pressures to commoditize, the pressures to reduce what you're doing to look like, sound like, feel like, and cost like everyone else is incredibly strong. You have AI. AI's impersonalizing what's going on, right? So what we have to do as leaders is determine what we do that is unique or different, and we have to hold on to it, and we have to promote it internally and externally. And Dave, the most exciting part of all that, and I'm happy to go into it, is we at my company do not try to create a company's differentiation. We discover it. It's already there. You've already been doing it, whether you've been in business 1 year, 150 years. We have one client that's 200 years old. You're already doing something that is unique. So number one, don't change that. And number two, let's identify it. Let's name it. You know, we name our children. We don't have child 1, 2, 3, and 4. We named them, and we have a story behind why we named them what we did, right? Well, we name it, and then what we do that's so exciting, before we tell the world, we celebrate it with the most important people, our employees, the people that designed it, or the people that build it, the people that sell it, the people that represent it, and make them the army that goes out and fights the battle with you.
So much to unpack there, and we're going to get to all of it, I promise you, especially the people part, because that's fascinating, and you know that you and I are totally in alignment on that piece. But let's talk about how you tease out the company's why or their differentiation. And I'm going to share a quick story with you that has stuck with me. I won't name names to protect the guilty here, but sitting in on a pitch where my side of the table was telling a potential client, essentially, we're just like the big boys, but we're less expensive. And low cost provider stuff never really resonated with me. And it was clearly an absence of being able to sell. But in that whole message, there was no differentiation. So how do you crack that nut, especially when you're dealing with people who, well, let me just say, don't get it?
It's not easy to crack the nut, but we have one magic question that we ask employees, we ask the leaders, we ask the customers, and that is, what is the one thing you do not want this company to change? The one thing. And if you ask 50 people, like we will usually do, 50 to 100, you're going to come up with maybe 3 main answers. And you know what? 1, 2, or maybe all 3 happen to be their real differentiators. That's going to be one place I look for that. And it's never, hey, they're the big boys, but they're cheap.
Yeah.
It might be, hey, they've got great bandwidth as an attorney, a law firm. They can do almost anything. And you go, okay, well, bandwidth is kind of cool. Or it could be their technology is brilliant because it's user friendly. Okay, whatever it is. But you've got to be able to listen to humans to do that. And another thing we do, Dave, as part of our process, which is a differentiator for us, is we will literally go inside the plants, the manufacturing facilities, the technology centers, the service centers, whatever it is, and we will look for and find differentiation. We'll walk through, we'll listen to the leaders, we'll talk to the people that are building or designing, and we're going to say, no, wait a minute, does everybody else do that? Hold on a minute, does your competitor ever do this? I'll tell one brief story. It may help the audience. I was working with a family bakery. Okay, it's a large one. It's throughout the United States, but it's a family bakery. And I said, we're going to find some differentiation. And I had their top leaders there. And each one said, we don't do anything unique. We do nothing unique. Well, we don't do anything anybody else isn't doing. I said, okay, let me ask you a different question. Do you spend more money on anything, any ingredient that you really wouldn't normally have to do? And immediately their CFO, the finance guy, goes, yeah. We spend way too much money on this special grain that we get out of the Northwest United States. And it costs 3 times what we could get elsewhere. I said, okay, hold on. Why? And he said, well, I've been told it makes our bread taste a lot sweeter, nicer, smoother, less harsh. And that's why we do it. I said, okay, guys, that's called a differentiator. Now,
Hmm.
do you promote it? They go, no. Have you named it? No, we just call it grain. I said, okay, nobody knows about it. You're not promoting it. Have you celebrated with your employees that you're going this extra step so that the consumer has the greatest tasting bread? No. I said, okay, so you got nothing for this. And it's like the old saying, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody hears it because nobody was there, okay, did it really make a sound? Okay, well, if you have differentiation, but you don't share it, is it really that important? Is it really that unique? So
Yeah.
that's what we do. We pull it out of them, Dave, because they're so close to it. They see it
Yeah.
every day. They ignore it. It's just us being us. So it's inherently a very positive role for us because we're constantly saying, wait a minute, we see some magic in this. Let's stop for a minute. And literally these brilliant people go, well, I hadn't really thought of it like that. But, now that you
Right.
mention it, it is
Yeah.
pretty important. So that's how we
Aha.
do it.
Aha. Yes. The creating of the aha moments there. Let me ask you this though, Barry, because it strikes me that a lot of times, especially in the example you just shared here, the folks who are the leaders of the company um, don't always necessarily have the same view of what differentiates the company when you start to have conversations with some of the staff people. And oftentimes it's the nuggets you get from the line employees, if you will, that really spotlight the differentiation. Is that anything that you've experienced?
I've experienced it many times. The leaders, I love that you ask this question. The leaders have changed over the years. So 25 years ago, when I was talking about this, the leader would go, no, wait a minute. I don't want you to waste our time and energy sharing our uniqueness with our employees because, they need to work. I'm paying them, $5 an hour. They need to keep their head down and move through this and get the stuff out the door. Today, it's the opposite. The leaders, and I love sharing this because, such a large part of your audience is leaders. Leaders are usually portrayed pretty negatively by people, like, oh, you're heartless and you're incompetent, which, by the way, is a tough combination. But today's leaders, when I share, look, we want to find your differentiation. We're going to talk to your line people. We're going to talk to everybody. And then we're going to make sure your employees are the first to understand it and celebrate it. Literally, the leaders I talk to today, they start to tear up or get a little emotional and they go, please, that's what we need. We don't have good retention. We don't have good quality standards that are being adhered to. We need people to care. And I said, if you do this, you will not only see that they care, but they'll feel like they're doing something of significance, something of meaning. And that's where it's so important with, whether it's a line worker, an administrative person, or one of your leading executives. They all have to feel that what they do has meaning.
Yeah. Well, amen to that, brother. You revisited this. I was going to unpack this with you a little bit later, but since you played that card again, let's jump in. You know that I've written a couple of books on the value that people can contribute to a business, and the audience has heard me say ad nauseum that people are a company's most valuable asset, and I'm on a mission to make sure that conversation keeps resonating. A lot of empirical data that talks about the correlation between people being engaged in the bigger picture, the mission, right? They're bought into something beyond just making widgets, and the impact that has on engagement and on ultimate business value. So, talk a little bit about your experience in terms of number one, how did you uncover this nut that you've got to get the people involved first and foremost?
It really started out when I started to work with Volkswagen maybe 25, 30 years ago, and we were going to promote a product that was going to be launched very shortly. And the CEO called me up and he said, Barry, I need you in here. I need your genius. We're in big trouble. Morale is down. Our current product is not selling. It's a terrible product. People are really demoralized. And we have a new product coming out to replace it, but it's terrible. I need your help. And I came in the next week to meet with the president, who's a wonderful guy. And I said, hey, before we start, I have a question. We did some research. Do you know what the number one selling product in your segment is? And it's number one selling for the last 10 years. And he said, I don't have the foggiest idea. I said, it's that no good, lousy made, nobody's buying, ugly product that you've been producing. It's you. You have been number one. And he said, I didn't even know that. I said, yes, you're the number one product in your segment. Now you're going to replace it with hopefully a better product. But I said, what's that tell you? And Dave, this answers your question. He said, it tells me I've been denigrating what we're doing. I've been allowing people to speak poorly of it. I have not honored the success that we have had. And here, what I'm doing now is I'm telling people basically everything you've been doing is useless. People don't care about it, but soon we're going to have something different. And he said, no wonder they're depressed. They don't probably believe me. He said, I've got to change everything here. I've got to allow my people to know that, hey, what we've been doing for 10 years is not perfect, but it's been successful. And we're going to build on it. But instead of walking in shame, we're going to celebrate the success of this former product. And yeah, we're going to usher in the new one. So what is so important from that lesson and others that I've learned is our people, if they don't think what they're doing has much uniqueness, much value, if they think what they're doing is kind of like the company you mentioned earlier, yeah, we do everything the other guys do. I want everyone in the audience, Dave, and Dave, you get it because you've written books on this, but I want everybody in the audience to think, okay, why in the world, if we create that culture, should we expect an employee to care, number one, to stay with us, number two, number three, to even do a decent, let alone good job. So it's up to us as leaders to identify what we are doing that is good and important. One other short story, I toured an ambulance factory in Orlando, one of the leading ambulance factories, and I spoke to a person on the line. You brought up the line, and this is one thing that happened. I said to the young guy, I said, hey, what do you do here? And he said, I plug in wire harnesses. I said, great. He said, but I'm going to leave. I'm going to go down the street to a marshmallow factory, and I'm going to make 25 cents more an hour. I said, well, let's think about this. You have 100 of these ambulances going down the line. You're plugging in wire harnesses. Each of these ambulances will last about 10 years. And he goes, yeah, about 10. I said, okay, in those 10 years, 100,000 people, whether it's the driver, the technicians, the family of the patient or the patient themselves, you add it all up, 100,000 people will be in that ambulance as it's going down the highway, going down the road. And that ambulance is either protecting or saving the lives of all those people. And he looked at me, Dave, and he said, I didn't think I was in the life-saving business. I thought I was in the wire harness business. I said, well, maybe you're in the life-saving business. That's how important what we do is. So that young man stayed on. Now, maybe if it was $2 more an hour, he wouldn't have, but 25 cents, come on. He's saving lives. He's helping to make sure that people are protected. That's the importance of this. Now, you can have a great product. I've worked with clients that have wonderful products, and they treat their people like mushrooms, keep them in the dark and feed them crap, and that's it. And they get what they deserve. They have a nice product. It's a daily grind to force people, browbeat them to do a good job. So, I'm an old guy. I'm going, life's too short. We can have a lot of fun. We can be very, very positive and still do great work, but it's all going to be around our people. They're either going to be detractors or they're going to be part of that army that's right behind us in the battle.
Yeah, everybody in the organization is in sales, right? They're in marketing. Yep. They're your evangelists, or they're going on Glassdoor and they're syncing you, and all of that impacts retention, recruiting. Your ambulance story resonates And it reminds me of a parable, and I don't want to give you the whole thing because I'll probably butcher it, but the tale of two different bricklayers. One is on the task and he's just laying bricks. Another one is doing the same job and he's building a cathedral. And it's the mindset shift, the perspective of getting the buy-in to this bigger picture that is such a difference maker. And my wife has told me I'm basically drinking a microphone away from being a game show host. I'll talk to anybody. And for fun, just for shiggles, when I'm out in different situations, I'll just talk to people, in their employment when we're in a store or a restaurant, whatever. And I'll just start asking them questions about what they do, what they love about it. And you can immediately get a sense on what the culture's like, what the leadership is like. They don't have to give you the words. You get the vibe. So it really does matter.
It really does. And this isn't rah-rah cheerleader stuff. This is smart business because you're already paying the people. You're already providing whatever environment, whatever building, whatever benefits you're providing. And you're already, I'm confident, creating some product or brand or service that has a value to it. The only thing missing is being able to identify it, crystallize it, and celebrate it. That's what's missing. And I think too often we pay no attention to identifying it, and we're willing to throw everything else out because we got to do something different, or worse, we have to be like everyone else, which means we're going to have to lower our prices and cut the little things that we do out, take that great grain from the Northwest US and say, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to throw this crappy, lousy tasting grain that's half the price. Well, all of a sudden you're going to lose your customer base. But as you do it, here's the real bad news. You're losing the hearts and minds of your employees.
Yeah. Well, that was a really cool little sidebar conversation, so relevant and germane to this whole topic and much bigger issues. And obviously I'm passionate about it, and we can continue to go down that path for the next hour and a half. But I do want to bring it back to the differentiation and customer experience now, if you will. And it's all connected, and I get that. But when you talk about differentiation, and the idea behind brand power is ostensibly that the consumer is going to be willing to pay incrementally more for your particular brand because you have differentiated and risen above the competition. So where does the whole customer experience play into this? And how do you get the consumer mindset shift so that they're willing to actually pay for that differentiation?
Great question. The consumer could be a B2B consumer. It could be a B2C consumer. What's interesting is the experience that we deliver to our customer or client. This is interesting, Dave, is our brand. And here's what I'm saying. If you go to, let's say, an automobile dealership and you're so excited, you just saw this great car on TV and you can't wait to test drive it and you really want to buy it. You're so excited, and you go in and you're treated terribly. You're ignored, whatever. You're not even given a chance to drive the car. So I want everyone to think about that. Okay. And we've all had experiences like that. Most of us, and I'd be one of them, walk out of that dealership and we say, I will never buy that brand. And I'm going to tell people how terrible that brand is. And if you stop for a second, what's interesting is the brand, the people who built that car, they don't even know you went into that dealership. They don't know that. And they are not supporting that you had this horrible experience, but they will pay the price because we don't distinguish between the experience and the brand. A terrible experience means you have a terrible brand to most of us. I mean, some of us could be sophisticated and say, hey, I will go to a different dealership 45 miles away to look at the same car. Yeah, some of us will. Most of us are going to, I'm not going to buy that car. So our brand experience or customer experience is who we are. If we are supposed to be the friendly company, the smart company, we can't be inaccurate when we talk to the client and mispronounce their name or misspell their name. We can't ignore their calls or their emails coming in. We have to be right on top of it. So our experience is a reflection, a representation of what our brand is. And it's critical in the eyes of our customers.
Oh, so true. And man, you don't know how that story resonates here. Um, I had recently purchased a car years ago, a brand that I'd never had before, and had a certain little challenge with the logo on the grill after I got out of a car wash, and took it back to the dealership, and had a very unpleasant experience with customer service there in their area. Local management didn't seem to give a rip.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm sort of tenacious, I found my way through LinkedIn and weaved my way into the network all the way up to the top of the organization globally, and wound up having interactions with senior leadership of this manufacturer. Never once did they apologize. All I got was excuses. And I'll never buy that brand again. I got rid of the car actually as a result of my entire experience working with that brand.
I have a client, will not mention their name. They have arguably the best value in cars in the automobile segment, arguably the very best. I mean, they have cars where you could literally spend another 20% more and still have a really good value. Their problem, and this might be interesting as well to share, their problem is they've got a great product. The people who are at their dealerships don't reflect or represent what that product is. So this is a product that would be upper scale, not high elite, but upper scale. Yet their dealerships are very low scale. It's like a used car lot. And I'll tell you why it happened. I'll tell you why. It's because for decades, their cars were the low end car. They were the kind of junky car, the poor quality, ugly looking, cheap car that anybody with money would never even look at. They changed all that, and now their product's great, but guess what? The mindset of their dealers is still back where it was 10, 15 years ago. So they have that problem. And a lot of times that's what's happened, because what goes on, you have an engineering type company and they go, we have now improved this car and it's great. Everybody will buy it. Well, that's great. The problem is you need to inspire and train the people who are going to demonstrate it and work with humans who walk through that door. And that's what we have to do. So one part of our leadership is, and I help companies with this every day, is to help the people who represent that product or brand to be able to present it, to share the story behind it. And that goes for whether it's automobiles or we work with Macallan Scotch. Okay, we work with the Macallan Scotch distributors, stores, retailers, restaurants worldwide. And part of our job is to help them be able to explain why this product is 5 times more expensive than the one that's on the shelf over here. And we have ways of explaining it. But if you don't explain these things, you don't train them, they're just going to say what you said earlier. Yeah, this stuff next to the Macallan bottle. Yeah, this stuff is just as good. It's the same thing. It's just cheaper. So
Yeah.
Macallan loses 200 years of their brilliance and their genius when somebody acts like that.
People are your brand ambassadors.
That's
You
right.
hit it on the head, brother. We're getting close to the end here, Barry. Man, this really went very, very quickly, but I want to give you a chance to talk about the book, The Power of Differentiation. Tell us what inspired you to write it, and what will the readers uncover going through it?
The book itself is a collection of stories of individuals who tackled and discovered what made them differentiated, unique, and rallied their organizations to, in many cases, make history. So the book's not about me. I'm in the book here or there, but it's about really great leaders and a few that are unnamed that really kind of stumbled, so we can learn from those situations. In addition, and the essence of the inspiration was originally that, hey, I want to write a book that will help people identify what makes them unique, and they'll grow their business. But when COVID hit, One thing really shocked me, and that was in 1 year during COVID, 50 million Americans quit their job. They just walked right off their job. And I thought, what's interesting is I'm writing this book on differentiation so that the customer sees the value. The bigger picture is to also include the fact that the employee needs to see that picture of differentiation because they need to feel significant. They got to feel like, hey, what I'm doing is meaningful and I've got a home here. So that's the essence of the book. We cover the importance of words in how we describe our products or services. I go through the 5 steps of how we discover and promote and celebrate brand differentiation. We talk about jam sessions. I'm an old rock and roller, as you mentioned. We talk about how to conduct a jam session where you actually come up with actionable ideas. And we also cover how to use technology to promote your product or brand. So many brands claim they're technologically advanced, but they don't use technology to demonstrate it. So we show a lot of different aspects on how you can help your brand stand out and inspire your employees.
Sounds great. Barry, tell everyone where they can find that book and how they can find you, how they can connect with you if they want to learn more about you or work with you.
Like you, Dave, I love to hear from people. So reach out to me on LinkedIn under Barry Labov. You can check my company's website, labov.com, my website, barrylabov.com, and there's some of my music on there as well, so that's kind of fun. The book is offered through Simon & Schuster. It is also obviously on Amazon. So please buy the book and leave an honest review because that's what's so important. So I offer to anybody, please reach out. I've had people all over the world reach out to say, hey, look, I have a couple of questions. The University of Cambridge just reached out to me in England and had me on their podcast. Yale and Stanford have reached out regarding my book. I'm happy to help universities and colleges as well.
That's awesome. And I'm sure people will reach out to you. This broadcast does reach more than 100 countries, so keep us posted on who you hear from. Barry, we are out of time, man, but I can't thank you enough for joining us today on Behind the Numbers.
Dave, it's been great. I want the audience to know we signed up to do this over 1 year ago, and that's what kind of demand you're in. So I am very pleased that we did this today, and it's something I've looked forward to for a long time.
I really appreciate that. And I'm knocking on wood here. We are continuing to book out more than a year. So really do appreciate that. So it's the support of folks like you being a wonderful guest. And of course, the support from all the audience, folks out there watching and listening. We can't do it without you. So thank you so much for your support. I'm again, Dave Bookbinder. I am your host, and you can find me on LinkedIn. Always love to hear from you. That's all we have for today, gang. We got to run. We'll see you next time on Behind the Numbers.